Back at it today with another video, as today we're going to be looking at 5 players who desperately need a change of scenery. And I'm not really ranking these in any order, just naming off 5 players. So pretty simple concept. Now let's get right into the video. The first player we're going to be looking at today is Jarred Kelenic. Kelenic, for those who don't know, just a few years ago was one of baseball's top prospects. In fact, just a year ago in 2021, at the time of his call-up, he was the number 9 ranked prospect in all of baseball. But so far, he hasn't looked like it, as since his call-up last year, he's been sent back down to the minor leagues numerous times. So far in his brief career, Kelenic has played in 147 games in which he's hit 168 to go along with 21 home runs, 11 stolen bases, a .589 OPS, and a -2 WAR. And at this point, I think a lot of Kelenic's struggles can be attributed to the mental side of baseball. Baseball is a high-pressure sport, especially for Kelenic being a former top prospect who was expected to deliver right away. And I was one of the many people who thought Kelenic was going to have a huge impact right away. I thought he was going to play like Julio Rodriguez did this year. So for Kelenic, it has been a tough start to his major league career, but he is still only 23 years old. I think a change of scenery would benefit him massively. I think he could potentially get his confidence back and play like the player we all expected him to be if he gets shipped away to another team. Moving on to the next player I want to talk about today, I have Cody Bellinger. Early on in his career, Bellinger was thriving. He was one of the best players in all of baseball. In fact, in his last full season back in 2019, he hit .305 to go along with 47 home runs, a .1035 OPS in which he won the National League MVP award. But since then, he hasn't been the same. In 2021, he hit .165 to go along with a .542 OPS, and in 2022, he hit .210 to go along with 19 home runs and a .654 OPS. So ever since his MVP campaign back in 2019, he has looked like a completely different player out there. And being in a big market like LA, he seems to always be in the spotlight. Bellinger is still only 27 years old, so right now he's really in the middle of his prime, and I think a change of scenery would benefit him, and I think he could potentially get back to all-star form. I'm not saying he's going to win another MVP, but like I said, he could be a much better player if he got shipped off to another team, and I think he would greatly benefit from that. Moving on to the next player, I have Fernando Tatis Jr. Now this one is pretty self-explanatory. Tatis has basically lost the trust of everyone in the Padres organization. And for those who don't know, Tatis signed a 14-year, $340 million contract extension back in 2021. And since then, he's yet to play a game as he missed the majority of the season due to a biking accident. And just as he was expected to return from this injury, he got busted for PEDs, ending his 2022 season without playing a single game. And with how good the Padres have done this postseason without him, it's safe to say that most of the players and front office probably don't even want him back. I know it can be hard to believe considering how talented he is, like he's a top 5 player in the world when healthy, but he's just lost trust in that organization and he's going to have to do a lot to get it back. And even with the massive contract that is going to have to be moved along with Tatis, I don't think the Padres are going to find any trouble finding trade partners because, like I said, he's one of the most talented players in baseball. And I think 29 other organizations would be willing to take a chance with him with how good he has been this early on in his career. So I think it's time the Padres and Tatis need to move on and go their separate ways. Moving on to the next player, I have German Marquez. This one really hurts me to say as a Rockies fan, but I think it needs to be done. Marquez is a very, very talented pitcher that I think would thrive outside of Coors Field. This past season, in 182 innings, Marquez had a 5 ERA. And with how good his stuff is, he is just much better of a pitcher than that. In fact, back in 2018, Marquez posted his best season of his career as in 196 innings, he had a 3.77 ERA to go along with 230 strikeouts. I know it may be hard to believe, but I think Marquez has Cy Young stuff. Now earlier, I briefly mentioned that he posted a 5 ERA this season, but if you take a closer look at his home road splits this year, he had a 6.7 ERA at home and a 3.43 on the road. So if you take away Marquez's home starts this year, he would have posted a 3.43 ERA, which is miles better than a 5 ERA. And throughout his career, his home road splits have been similar to this year, as he has a 5.08 career home ERA and a 3.77 career road ERA. So while I think a lot of Rocky fans don't like this, I think it's reality and it needs to be done. Getting on to the next player, I have Patrick Corbin. Corbin is a pitcher who hasn't been good for a couple years now, but I still think he has potential. In fact, over the past 3 seasons spanning from 2020 to 2022, his ERA has been 4.66, 5.82, and 6.31. So he's gotten worse and worse over the past 3 seasons, and he was probably the worst pitcher in all of baseball this year. But he is only 33 years old. I know that might be considered old for some players, but I think Corbin still has a couple good years left in the tank. I'm not saying all-star caliber numbers even, I'm just saying, an ERA around 4, something that would be much better than the 6.31 he posted this year. Now the problem with Corbin is the fact that he's in the midst of a 6-year, $140 million contract. So the Nationals are going to have a very hard time finding anyone to take that contract with how bad Corbin has been over the past couple years. But I do think Corbin on a new team would sort of be like a fresh start to him. I think he could get the past couple years out of his head and sort of start fresh and start with a new team. Now before we officially wrap the video up, I want to give 2 honorable mentions in Anthony Rendon and Aroldis Chapman. Rendon signed a 7-year, $245 million deal with the Angels back in 2020. And over the past 2 years, he's played in 105 games where he has only hit 11 home runs and has a .711 OPS. So Rendon is similar to Corbin in the sense that I think the Angels are going to have a really hard time finding someone to take on that contract. I think Rendon would benefit greatly from a change of scenery. As for Aroldis Chapman, he recently skipped a mandatory workout and has been left off the ALDS roster. And this year he posted a 4.46 ERA, and I really don't think he is what he once was, but I do think he would benefit greatly from a change of scenery and a new team. So there's my list of players that I think desperately need a change of scenery. Let me know what you guys think down below, any players you agree with or any players I potentially missed out on. And as always, I want to thank you guys again so much for watching and continuing to support, and I'll see you next time.